it's time to hear from one of the most interesting men in the state of South Dakota. We are fortunate to have Erik Muckey with us today. Erik is my friend and a fellow USD Coyote come to Wolves Country today to be with us. Erik is one of 5 18-year-old co-founders of the region's largest adult suicide prevention nonprofit, Lost and Found. Since its founding in 2010, Lost and Found has reached over 5.1 million people with digital mental health resources and support tools. Headquartered in Sioux Falls, Erik serves as Lost and Found's CEO and has led the growth from a 100% volunteer organization in 2017 to a $1.5 million annual budget, 13 staff organization today. Before becoming Lost and Found's full-time CEO in 2020, Erik started his career in municipal government and financial services, serving in various financial analysis, consulting, project management, and strategy roles. Erik is also the founder of managing partner of PASQ, a strategic planning consulting firm that serves as an advisor to dozens of nonprofits and social ventures spanning the United States. He lives in downtown Sioux Falls with his wife, Sadie, and was recently elected to represent District 15 in the South Dakota House of Representatives. Please help me welcome Erik to the stage.
Great job, folks. That was fun to listen to. Welcome. Glad to be with you. I like to say, if you think that your idea today is something that you're just doing for a competition, think again. You might find yourself up on a stage about 14 years later wondering, how did I get here? So I'm Erik. I'm the CEO of Lost and Found. I've been with Lost and Found for 14 years, since I was an 18-year-old high school student graduating from Corsica High School here in South Dakota. And I'll tell you a little bit about what it means to be a social entrepreneur, I guess, for lack of a better way. But first and foremost, I think of 3 things before I talk about this topic. So first and foremost, for our participants that are here today, well done. I hope you got to enjoy the process. I know going through this is not simple or easy, and especially getting the chance to speak in front of a crowd and folks that are online. Hello, folks online. It's daunting. And so I always like to say, today you're not going to get good and bad news. You're just going to get good, better, and best news. So my good news for you is this. 14 years later, I get to join you on a stage as the CEO of an organization I co-founded when I was 18 years old. I got to join a bunch of pitch competitions in undergrad and in college long after the experience that you're going through today. You did a great job. You did way better than I did. So you're already set to go. So that's the good news. Oh, lost the screen here. Better news, when it comes to the process of participating in something like this, no one can ever take away this experience from you. When you come to find an idea, find something you're passionate about, find action that you can take to make it a reality, no one can take that experience away from you, and that experience is going to be something that'll fuel you for many years to come. And the best news I can give you is that if you learned something from this process, show of hands for the folks who participated, did you learn something? Yeah? Even if it seems like something really small or banal or not very important, what you learned is going to be something that'll help you down the road. I can guarantee you that. So why am I here with you today? Well, let me tell you first about the organization I helped co-found when I was 18 years old, Lost and Found. Lost and Found is South Dakota and Minnesota's largest youth and young adult suicide prevention nonprofit. If you see the number of "and" signs on the screen, you'll be able to see all the communities that we impact right now. So we serve essentially from Minneapolis to Spearfish and a lot of places in between. And as a rural guy from Corsica, South Dakota, I'm really honored that I get to work in rural communities with this work too. So though we are headquartered in Sioux Falls and we have a few team members there, our team members are spread all over the region. We have staff actually here in the Aberdeen area, located up in Frederick. We have multiple staff members in Sioux Falls, multiple staff members in Brookings, a staff member in Vermilion, a staff member in the Twin Cities, staff in the Black Hills. We're everywhere. And what we do is those 4 things on the side, which are fun technical terms for saying we really help people know how to talk about mental health and know how to help each other. We really know how to train folks and give them the tools so they know how to help somebody if your friends are struggling, family, whoever, that they have the technical tools to say, if somebody comes to me in their worst hour, I know what to do. We know how to help folks measure impact. We help folks understand how do we solve this problem of suicide. And ultimately, we also work with families who've been impacted, unfortunately, by suicide. Suicide's a leading cause of death for South Dakotans under the age of 29. So if you think about the need, obviously the need is here in our organization, which was a glimmer in our eyes at 18 years old. We didn't know what we were getting into. This has now become something that's changing the state and changing the region. So when you think about regional impact, I know, Katie, thank you for bringing up the numbers. Sometimes I have to remember that myself, but one of the things that drove us is something that I heard in some of your pitches today, which is how do we use technology to make this work? And what makes this work well is our digital technology, mobile applications that we developed in the process. But simply put, this all became a reality because of a platform that used to be cool, Facebook. And this is what that result came from. So let me tell you a little bit about why I'm here today. And here's some bio information I can give you. So who am I today? I'm 32 years old. I grew up in Corsica, South Dakota. I'm a sixth generation South Dakotan from Douglas County, first generation off the land, fortunately or unfortunately, however you want to look at that. I think we'd be preference to be there. But my wife and I live in downtown Sioux Falls, recently married. I am a son, brother, and friend first and foremost. Those are my first identities. Second identities I look at professionally. I'm the CEO of Lost and Found. I founded a company called PASC that does nonprofit management consulting and works with rural communities to strengthen strategic planning so they can look ahead to the future. I'm also now, as of about a month ago, a new member of the South Dakota House of Representatives, serving downtown Sioux Falls and north central Sioux Falls. So if you have the desire to listen to budget discussions in Pierre, you'll see me on there, see you on STPB, but otherwise, hope to see you sometime in Pierre. Where I've been, much more fit version of me about 14 years ago. I'm a graduate of Corsica High School in 2010. I went to the University of South Dakota for college, earned a degree in economics, ended up in a long train of careers working in just about every sector, and having lived in South Dakota, lived in Washington, D.C., I lived in Minneapolis, earned my graduate degree at the University of Minnesota. But my whole thing was never the work I'm doing. Suicide prevention wasn't the idea that I had. My idea and my focus has always been, how do I bring communities like the one I grew up in to the forefront? How do I elevate communities like Corsica and the communities that you're from to the forefront? And I was told by my parents that if I work hard enough, things will be good. They were right. There was a lot of things that worked out well. I ended up doing very well, getting to college, finding a good job, so on and so forth. But I didn't think I would be here. And when people ask me about founding Lost and Found, I joined the founding board. I joined the founding organization as a deal and a favor to my friend. I had no passion for it. I didn't know what I was getting into. And so I always say, if you think you may not have an idea, you might be surprised where you find yourself, as long as you work hard and you know what you care about. So how did I get here? To my sister's wedding, she decided to throw me the flowers, so I became the flower man for the day. So how you got here? I got here by being kind of a nerd. I like to say the best tools that were given to me were in high school by my parents. Both my parents were teachers, for context. They were very happy to tell me that your grades matter, your time in school matters, but they also said, get passionate about something. Get passionate about something. Become a nerd about something. So I guess what's helped me along the way is that, first and foremost. Second thing that I think is maybe underrated for anybody getting involved in a pitch competition or trying to start a business, the best piece of advice that I was given early on was by my father, who also, like I said, happened to be my teacher. Not just my teacher, my accounting teacher. He really, really wanted me to stay in accounting and become an accountant long term. I'm glad I didn't take that piece of advice from my father. No offense to the accountants in the room. But what helped me a lot actually in this work was knowing accounting, knowing the numbers, knowing how that worked. And I can't tell you enough now as a nonprofit leader and a small business owner, I don't find a lot of folks who really want to dig into that. Not to say that they Don't want that they can't, but I think it's an underrated skill. So especially now in high school, get to know that process well. It will serve you well. And then last, I like to say trying to make a difference is what got me here. I won't swear today. I can be a little bit colorful sometimes. But today I just want to impart one piece that will help you keep getting through those challenges, which is keep your give a crap factor very high. Keep that. Because at some point, it might not be the idea that you have today that you really give a crap about. But somewhere along the line, somebody's going to challenge you to get involved with something that you may not know anything about, lost and found being mine. And that desire to make a difference and having passion and knowing that passion to make a difference will ultimately get you there. You just have to know how to do that. That's going to take you where you need to go. So, I only have 3 lessons for you today. Only 3. Not 4, not 5, just 3. But I'll just start with this one. So let me tell you about the lost and found journey and why we got here. So lesson number 1, be here for the result and the journey. I tried to simplify lost and found into 5 segments of time, and we'll see how this goes. I think all of you did a much better job with your pitches. This is not a pitch today, but we'll do our best. So our big idea in 2009 was we needed to do more to prevent suicide in South Dakota. Our organization, Lost and Found, started literally because of a Facebook argument. 2 people, one, DJ Smith, who's standing with me up there, back when he had way better hair, still does. He got in an argument with somebody from Michigan on Facebook. There was another nonprofit in 2009 called To Write Love in Our Arms. If any of you are familiar with the use of MySpace, aging myself a bit, MySpace was the platform to be on in the mid-2000s, and it was mostly for music and streaming, but it started building communities for folks to come together. And an organization out of Florida called To Write Love in Our Arms started a movement where they literally write the word love on your arm to raise awareness around suicide and the impacts it was having around the country. Well, DJ thought that was a pretty crappy idea. You know, what's it going to do? Like, what is writing the word love on your arm going to do? His friend Kayla in Michigan thought the opposite and said, you don't understand. This is how people know it's safe to talk about suicide and mental health. And so that argument turned into a last-minute senior project for DJ. DJ and I were close friends throughout high school. How many of you in the room, high school students, were involved or are involved in Family, Career, and Community Leaders of America, FCCLA? Anybody? See a few hands. Awesome. Okay. So Lost and Found's an FCCLA project, just so you know. DJ, being the epitome of procrastination, he and I are very different personalities, at least at that point in time, decided he wanted to turn this into a senior project. And lo and behold, he brings it to our state FCCLA meeting under the auspices of doing more to prevent suicide. And what that man did is something I still to this day can't understand, and I don't know that I ever will, but it's great. A 16-year-old creates a Facebook group, gets people in South Dakota, around the country, and eventually the UK to take on random acts of kindness and share mental health resources with just 3 of their friends, and then encourage them to do the same. So if you ever heard of the concept of paying it forward, he brought that into Facebook for him. And, you know, he had his way of charisma of getting people to get involved, but when the senior project started, and I didn't know this, was that he had 3,000 people in his Facebook group that he was getting to do these random acts of kindness every month, all over the world. So that senior project at the South Dakota FCCLA conference in April, we're graduating from high school, life's good. Lo and behold, he gets to the national conference. I do too. My project is not nearly as cool. It was life event planning for college. Go Yotes. I made it with him, which I'm glad I did. It's kind of a twist of fate. We both did really well in Chicago at the national conference. We come home on a bus. DJ says, you know, my dad's an attorney. Do you think we could turn this into something that can last? Can we become a nonprofit is what he's saying. So he grabbed 4 of us in the bus. DJ was friends with everybody. I know a few of you in the room who knew DJ. He was literally friends with everybody. So I was very honored when I was one of the four he picked to say, hey, you're going to go to school for accounting. Would you like to be our treasurer? Sure, let's do it. $0, 100% volunteer. We are founded in 2010, September, first days of college at the University of South Dakota, against better judgment, is what I say. But the whole premise was we want to do more to prevent suicide. We didn't know how, we didn't know what we were going to do, but we were going to do it. So first logo, nice hand drawing from DJ. I don't know if it was in Microsoft Paint or not, but it might have been. So during college, this 2010 to 2014 era, we're all at the University of South Dakota. We all get very involved. We all get involved in our various things. We're all studying. We're all trying to get our degrees. During that time in college, we all experienced something in common. One, we're getting involved in building this as a student organization on college campuses, but two, we lost friends to suicide. It was a pretty dark thing to experience as college students. I know if any of you have experienced suicide loss, it's a dark thing to have to explain and try to discuss. We experienced it multiple times in college. And what I say about that is that it fueled passion. It gave us an idea of what we could do. And so during this 4-year period of college, not only were we learning and getting our degrees, we're also getting a real learning experience of what it means to actually try to do this thing called doing more to prevent suicide. And what that looked like was creating college campus chapters, spreading awareness of the problem in South Dakota and what we could do to connect people to resources. So 2010 to 2014, bracelets were all the rage. We had a ton of them. I still have a bunch in my apartment in Sioux Falls. And we find our passion and a little bit of cash. We host some really cool events at the University of South Dakota. We get our friends involved at SCSU, even though we secretly hate each other. Just kidding, we didn't. And we also get friends involved at Dakota State. So what happens in 2014 when we're all graduating from college? We go to the next era. Our friend DJ, back here in 2009, he was the founding chair. He was the founding CEO. He was one of you giving a pitch saying, this is who we're going to be. He had other plans for his life, and I'm grateful that he had those plans. He, in 2014, joined the Peace Corps to move to Tanzania, as one does after college. And I ended up taking the role against my better judgment. I became the CEO of something that I originally had no connection or passion to. But in that time frame, at the end of college, I experienced my own battles with depression and suicide ideation. I'm really grateful that I had good family support and care. But what I learned also was that me as somebody with good family ties, good support systems, counseling, all the resources that I could ever ask for, there are a lot of people in this world who don't have those. And that became then my mission to lead this organization to what it could be. So we go from here to 2017, in about a 3-year span, we started rethinking things. We started figuring out, as many of you have probably gone through in the thought process of what could my business actually become, we had to figure out, okay, we're a bunch of campus chapters, we're an army of students, basically. Can this be a sustainable organization? Is this actually solving the problem? Are we doing this the right way? And what we figured out was that we couldn't just be 100% volunteer anymore. A lot of nonprofits make the assumption that everything is for free, everything's cheaper because you're a nonprofit, right? Wrong. If you're gonna run a nonprofit, you need to run it like a business with a different element. You're not just focused on making things work for your staff, for your bottom line, for the product you're bringing to the world. You also have to measure impact, and you have to understand, am I solving a problem that's going to actually sustain? So I had to do some hard work. In this period, 2014 to 2017, as I'll show you in a second, my pathway was very bizarre, career-wise. But in that time, we built a board. We secured tax-exempt status, which is necessary if you're going to take in donations. And we figured out we might need to be more than one program. And we got better branding, too. So you'll see this really big change here at the very end of the stage. $25,000, half a person, full-time equivalent, to 2022, $1.4 million annual budget and 12 and a half people. What changed? Well, one, the pandemic. Two, connections, relationships. During this period of time, I lived in Sioux Falls, moved to Minneapolis, went to grad school, came back to Sioux Falls, got married, began living life, as I say. Life happened before marriage, but you get it. The point being, in this case, 2022, we had something different happen, the pandemic. The pandemic was the ultimate opportunity for this business model to actually work. And why it worked is because of one big thing. In the pandemic, you couldn't see other people, in some parts of the country anyway. If you have to go completely digital, and you're talking about a nonprofit that was literally founded on being just digital, what happens? Well, we find ways to make connections. We adapt. We find ways to reach people in ways that no one else is reaching them. And what that looks like for this organization is that we started providing guides, we started providing education, we started providing peer support, and lo and behold, we found some customers who were looking for just that, the state of South Dakota. Other eventers, under other campuses, other communities. And when that happened, when that pandemic happened, suddenly federal funds, state funds, earned revenue opportunities arrive. We suddenly are deciding we have to make the move because suicide then has also become the leading cause of death for South Dakotans under 29. Everything changed all at once. So, no, I'd love to say that, hey, we just came upon a pile of money, but the reality is in this world, in business, in nonprofits, in any organization, the rules change, the world changes. That's when things start to take off. So, that's the lost and found journey. Now, about mine, I love this graphic. This is my personal favorite. You know, you think your plan is a straight line thing, and in reality, what you're actually looking at is everything that could go wrong, and it sometimes does. But you have to go through all these mountains. So, I've been a full-time CEO since 2020. Before that, I was all of those things. All of them. In high school, I was a baseball coach. I was a hired hand. I love the lawn care business. I was a yard care extraordinaire, ran a lawn business in Corsica for a number of years. I was an intern. I was a student ambassador at the University of South Dakota. I was a researcher. I was enjoying the prairie protection today. I was a researcher on small grains and how to help provide cover crops to farmers in Minnesota. I was a project manager in a bank. I worked in strategy. I was an adjunct professor of economics. If you really want to have a good time with me at a party, get me talking about Federal Reserve policy, things that no one wants to talk about. And I was also something that's important to share at the bottom. I was a doer of too much. I'm guessing all of you like to do a lot of things and are very involved. One thing that's important to remember is that doing is really helpful when you're trying to be an entrepreneur. Just try not to do too much. Lesson 2, understand what success means for yourself. So I use this quote a lot. I try not to name the board member who shared this because they're a dear friend and I don't think they meant poorly by this, but Lost and Found celebrated its 10th anniversary in 2020. So as you can imagine, 2020 was a pretty big year for our organization. And one of the quotes that was shared when we're entirely virtual, we can't see each other, and we're talking about our experience and our history as an organization was this. So one of our board members said, I wish I would have given myself, sorry for the typo, I wish I would have given myself more opportunities to think, what if this works, as opposed to, how do we prevent this thing from going to the ground? The team that I was with even didn't realize or didn't think that our organization would survive. They just didn't. And not to their fault. When you're trying to effectively change the world that we're a part of, sometimes you're going to have doubts, and that's fine. I think what's important to keep in mind is that, at least my advice to you, as people with a lot of life to live and a lot of life to give, and also businesses that you may actually take from here. I hope you do. is that you need to prepare for success. So often we're prepared for what failure looks like that we don't sort of play the game or get involved. What you need to be really thinking about is not just plan to fail, but plan to succeed and what problems might come from that. So what actually helped Lost and Found make it from 0 to $1.5 million? All of these things. And you can take each one of these things, and I could probably bend your ear for an hour talking about it. We're not going to do that today. But what I think is important for you to stick with, maybe out of all of these things, learn, know how to translate what you do into a real model. What's your business model going to look like in reality? Build and trim your team. Your team becomes your extension. Your team helps your organization go from idea to reality. Partner with like-minded organizations. Find who not just who your customers are, but who's going to connect you to your customers. Who's going to make that happen? And then the last two. Act the plan. Don't wait. When you're 80% of the way there, go. Sometimes you might want to be perfect, but perfection is not going to get you to where you want to be. And then overcome the impossible, because you are going to lose sometimes. In that graphic I shared with you, the 5 stages of Lost and Found, I can probably name for you at least 20 times where I thought Lost and Found was done. I was going to quit. I was going to walk away, find another job, figure out how to tell my friends, my parents, my family, my now wife, what am I going to do? Because losing happens. But if you let that be the end story of your organization, you're not going to get there. So don't let it be. Last lesson for you. Solve problems that mean something to you. What I loved hearing from some of the pitches is that I can tell you're passionate about these things. They matter to you. Lost and Found, though, when I started, was not an idea that necessarily was what deeply mattered to me. Today, that is a deep part of who I am and is so ingrained into who I am that it's hard for me to imagine myself sometimes not being in the seat, but I'm going to get there because we have to do other things. The most important thing is know what is passionate to you, because someday you're going to have a chance to make an impact. So for me, I'll leave you with this as far as your best advice as an entrepreneur. Your life will not be defined by your successes. It'll be defined by what you stand for. Sometimes the standing for is a good thing, sometimes it's a bad thing, sometimes it's not a thing, but you need to know what you stand for. And all these, when I think about all the work of being an entrepreneur, the hours of sleep I've lost, the amount of other things I could have been spending my time on, I think about this and I remember why I do what I do. Because at the end of the day, a business, a nonprofit, an organization is a business, a nonprofit, or organization at the end of the day. You can change the world with it, you can do whatever you want with it, but you have to be clear, conscious with who you are when you're going to be an entrepreneur, whether it's this half of the screen, which is new political life for me. I've lobbied for our organization to help make sure that suicide prevention was at the forefront, and now I'm a legislator. New journey. My family on the end remind me so often how to have fun and make sure not to grind your teeth too much in the work that you're trying to do. Hence where I'm in the middle now with my partner walking into a new era of life together. It's important to remember who you are, because who you stand for and what you stand for is going to define you a lot more than any success that you experience. So I'll leave this on the screen. Take a picture, keep it, whatever you got to do. Obviously we'll keep it, we'll send the slides out too, but I love this. This was something that I got this advice actually from my mentors when I was going through the entrepreneurial program at the University of Minnesota. Entrepreneurship means many things, but above all, it means solving problems. Each of you that brought a pitch today, you're solving a problem for somebody, or maybe for you. Make sure the problems you solve are problems that count, because being an entrepreneur comes at a price. So in your life, because all of you will, whether you start a business or not, being an entrepreneur is a part of problem solving. It's not necessarily the result of starting a business. You can do many things, but being you will make you the best entrepreneur you can be, because the world needs you and they need your idea. So I'm appreciative of you stepping forward and sharing your ideas because you need to, and the world needs you to be entrepreneurs. Thank you. Appreciate the time with you. Very happy to answer any questions. And as always, please keep doing this.
So Erik, you just kind of touched on this a little bit, and someone wanted to know, do you have a mentor, someone who inspired or pushed you? Who was it, how, and why?
So I am a deep believer in this field. You have to have mentors because you're trying to chart a path that no one else has, or you may not know that somebody else has actually charted the path and you need to learn from them. So the best mentor that I had was when I was in grad school. John Stavig, he's the head of the Holmes Center for Entrepreneurship at the University of Minnesota. You might be surprised, our neighbors, we like to make fun of them a lot, but our neighbors do have one of the country's, I should say, largest entrepreneurial competition called the Minnesota Cup. And so he was the person who mentored me probably the most. And the way of mentorship that I got from him was he asked seemingly basic questions that made me question everything about my business model. And so it was really helpful to have that, and I know I wouldn't be here without him, but I also say too, don't forget about your friends and family. They can mentor you in ways that you wouldn't otherwise expect.
You have to appreciate those people who give you tough love, right?
Oh, yeah.
All right, this might be my favorite question of all time. What is the best part of being an employer versus an employee, and what's the hardest part of being the boss?
What's the best part of being an employer? I never thought I'd get to do this. I come from a family of teachers and farmers, and in a way, obviously, farming in the style that my family farmed before we were off the land was a 1970s style, widely diversified, super small operation. So they were the staff. So to be an employer now, my favorite thing is getting to develop really cool people and help them achieve what they want to achieve. We get to go to work every day to do the work of Lost and Found. We're training peer mentors, we're educating folks, we're giving people tools, but the best part of that is I get to work with some of the smartest people on the planet. I get to work with PhDs, I get to work with folks in social work, counselors all over the board who inform me and teach me, but I also get to help them through this work, provide for their kids, find insurance for really critical health insurance issues, find things that are going to help them grow. And so there's a way that I enjoy getting to do that. But what's the hardest part about being the boss? At the end of the day, it comes back to you. And you really have to lead with integrity and ask yourself, can I handle this? Which you can. But what would I tell myself if I'm through this situation? What advice would I give myself? Especially when you have to make hard decisions like making a budget cut. You might have to fire somebody. You might have to reprimand somebody. You might have to be put in a situation where you're making really hard strategy choices that no one agrees with. But you have to be cool with yourself to come home and say, okay, I'm still a human, I'm still a person, and that's what you have to do as part of the job.
Excellent. Remember, our microphone's down here. They're hot and live. I know far too many people in this room. Don't make me call on you. I can see your wheels turning. So please, feel free to jump up at any moment. Erik, what was your biggest fear starting out? And how, or maybe even along the way, and how did you overcome it?
I think the biggest fear I had starting is this idea actually going to last? Will this be something that we can see continue? And that's still something I deal with just about every day. In a nonprofit, especially in the current environment we operate in today, where coming off an election, no matter who is elected, you're looking at federal funds being a part of the process, and you're not really sure what's coming, what's happening. I guess what helps me get through that uncertainty is knowing that our mission has been served. We have done really cool things. We have done things that have really helped people. We still get calls every day from families who have lost a loved one who we've served, who say, "You literally saved our lives." And so to remember those things is what is going to get you through those hard moments.
Again, those microphones are live, everybody. Students, you guys have the heads up. Let's go. All right. What's your favorite part about your job? It's not all hard work.
No. My favorite part about my job is getting to see... getting to see the work that we do at Lost and Found being elevated, or elevating the state of South Dakota in such a meaningful way. Like I said, I'm a rural guy. I think about home in every decision that I make. South Dakota is my home. I will always make it home. When I left the state temporarily for grad school, my whole thing was, I'm bringing everything back here to make South Dakota better. And to be able to then see opportunities like Lost and Found going to Malaysia. A year ago, I was in Indonesia and Malaysia, sharing Lost and Found's work and having folks there say, we've never seen this before. And it came from South Dakota. So that's pretty cool. I love that part.
Awesome. We have a question at the microphone.
Erik, great presentation, good stuff. Your organization has gone through 5 different periods of growth, and there are challenges that come with each of those things. One of the hardest ones is when you're first starting out. Another really hard thing is when you're going from half an FTE to 12 and a half FTE in like a 5-year time period. Talk about those 2 things and some of the challenges and the thought processes you're going through as you're navigating those.
Oh, that's a great question. So I'll start before the half FTE and then going up. So I was in your seats, albeit I was in graduate school. I was in a spot where I got to go to run a pitch or be a part of a pitch competition for Lost and Found, not knowing what it was like, not knowing the experience, not knowing, and frankly, not having a lot of coaching to start with. And so what I learned in that process, much like you're probably learning now, is what's going to help answer the questions or answer the gaps. But number 2, which is important, how do you take what is a product and turn it into a business? So the first piece of advice I got from that experience in a pitch competition was, you need to go test something. You need to get enough money to get it started, and then spend down that money, not knowing what's going to happen next, and then go back and do it all over again. So the most daunting task of getting started is spending down your money, testing an idea, not knowing it's going to work, and being okay with whatever result is on the other side, saying either it's not going to continue or you found magic. Well, we found magic. And in that same process, it just kept repeating, but the stakes kept getting larger and larger and larger and larger and larger until the first grant we ever received was $5,000. The largest grant we received to date was a 4-year RFP worth about $1.3 million. So in terms of scale and magnitude, you have to go from thinking about, I'm just going to test this idea, to strategically, how do I make this pot of money or this opportunity or this, need work for an organization where nonprofits are not exactly generating a ton of revenue. We're not selling a lot of things, so to speak. You have to front some cash, make it work, and then you get paid later on. And so that's probably the biggest challenge I ever had in terms of getting between those 2, but then also in the middle of that, the hard question is, who do you find that's going to help you in that process? And I have to give credit. I don't know if she's watching. Our Chief Operating Officer, Susan Kroger, was really our first hire. And she was the yin to my yang, very different mindsets, but having that other person that could help you say, you do these things, I'll do these things, we'll team up, we'll come together, but you have to have a team. And so I really stress, when you want to go from being an idea to a reality, you have to build a team.
Those people are important. We have another question.
What year would you say was the hardest for you?
Ooh, I'd say all of them. But to answer your question, maybe more directly, I'd say the hardest one was recent. The hardest year was 2023. We were an organization that had track record. We had traction. We'd finally made it, so to speak. And the main source of revenue we had, which accounted for at that time half of our revenue, which means at that point, people. When we're talking about revenue for an organization, I'm talking people. I was going to lose half my staff because the revenue that we were going to have was going to go away. And so I had to literally go, this is what started my legislative journey. I had to go lobby for our organization, lobby for others like us, and say, you cannot let this money go away. Federal money that was set to expire after the pandemic to solve a problem that we learned about in the pandemic. And lo and behold, spent 60 days in peer trying to get that across the finish line, and we did. But all through that time, I worried every day, are we going to lose this money? Are we going to lose people? Can I make payroll? Are we going to continue this mission that's been built by 5 high school students? Are we going to make it? And we did somehow. But it took a lot of help, and we talk about mentors, talk about allies, partners. That's how we made it through.
Excellent. Another question.
A couple questions for you. One, do you ever feel like you have imposter syndrome, meaning you really shouldn't be the guy standing here?
Every day. If you ever think for a minute that it somehow goes away, that suddenly, I'll use this as a quick analogy and not going too far. The worst speech that I ever gave, public speaking wise, was on the stage at Boise State, froze. And so I still think of that version of me, 16-year-old going to Boise State, or 17-year-old going to Boise State, and yeah, to be on the stage now, it's kind of trippy sometimes.
That's awesome. Next, what's the next step for Lost and Found, and also you personally?
Yeah. Next steps for Lost and Found. We had a really interesting year. Our organization has been providing community education for free effectively for the past probably 5 years, and this is the first year we're actually generating revenue. That has meant new opportunities for us to engage the community, but this past year we've trained about 12,000 people on what to do in the case of your friend struggling with mental health or suicide. So next year will be, hopefully, fingers crossed, doubling that. The other thing that's really exciting for Lost and Found the year ahead is that we mentioned a mobile app. We developed a mobile app to go with our peer support programming, and so we're hoping to expand to a handful more college campuses. So when you're here at Northern, when you're here across the state of South Dakota, Minnesota, hopefully you'll be able to engage with Lost and Found. But the third thing that'll be most exciting, we're working on the first of its kind certification for peer support specialists in South Dakota. We don't have that as a medical profession. We're trying to make it a medical profession. So excited for that. Personally, just got married. I'd really like to make things a little less complicated for my wife. Put her through a lot. But I'm also heading to peer. So starting January 14th, I'll be serving in the House of Representatives. I like to say I get the three very powerful committees, but 3 bone dry committees. So appropriations, state budget, retirement laws, and rules. So setting rules for administrative agencies. So I'm excited to go do that. I'm looking forward to being in peer. I know we have a lot of issues we got to navigate through. So anybody in the crowd, if you have something, email me, connect with me. Love to talk more.
Final question, nothing against Katie, but which Leadership South Dakota class was the best one, and why was it ours?
2017. Thanks, Heath. Yes, it is absolutely the Leadership South Dakota class of 2017. I wish I could go through now another time. I was a whopping 24 years old when I went through the program, but because of people like Heath, 2017, the best.
I mean, and you guys just did kick our butt in the annual fundraising.
Yeah, we did.
So I, too, am a graduate of Leadership South Dakota, class of 2018. Everybody up here is a shade young, but for all of our other attendees, check that out. Leadership South Dakota, a great opportunity to get involved in our state. Another question from the floor.
I just have a quick question. It kind of is layers, but do you only focus on college campuses? Is there only certain ages that you focus on? And what have you done for marketing? So for instance, us high school teachers have to take suicide training every year. Have you thought about going to a younger group, or for teachers, or like?
You nailed my education question very well. So you've all had to go through this process. Who's your target market? Who are you going to serve? And Lost and Found has struggled with this a lot because the need, when you're talking about trying to solve the problem of suicide, is very large. Everybody's impacted. Everybody has something to do with it. So how do you get people involved? Recently, we had to go through a very hard period. Lost and Found had to make about a $300,000 budget cut because of federal funds that didn't come through, which is not uncommon for nonprofits. But what it also did was a cool opportunity, which was help us focus. So what we're really focused on is how do we work directly most of the time with young adults over the age, so 16 and above, essentially where our target market is. But who we're serving primarily when we're providing peer support, most of it is on a college campus or in the community. And then the rest of our services are primarily focused on who are the folks that are supporting high school, college students, so teachers, administrators, supervisors, employers. And so our marketing now has shifted a little bit. We continue to market to college campuses because of our contracting relationship with the Department of Health. So there's another partner who actually works in high schools called the Helpline Center. They provide what's called Hope Squads, which work with them. But what we found is that there are a lot of teachers around the state who need that continuing education, suicide prevention. So we actually started working with associated school boards and other organizations who work directly with administrators to say, you need this training and education. Here's our pathway to do so. So a lot of our marketing is word of mouth, and a lot of it is through partners. We do quite a bit actually on social media to get folks engaged and say, come to us, find training, whatever that might be. But most of it is through our partners to say, we exist, the resources is here. We'll work with you.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Any final questions? All right, then I'm going to ask my favorite question, and we'll wrap us up today. We just had a fantastic event here, both in the community of Aberdeen and on the NSU's campus, called FailFest. Every entrepreneur I know has a great failure. If you're like me, you have many. You have multiple. Erik, what's your favorite failure? How did you learn from it, and how did you grow from it?
This is fun. I love talking about that. There's some pretty big ones, honestly. I think my favorite failure, if I have to name one, came kind of around the time that Lost and Found was going from base of 0 to 100. We started a partnership with a campus I won't name in eastern South Dakota, and we had this idea that if we provided education sessions, you come into our workshop and you learn about a specific topic related to mental health, you'll probably get a good benefit out of it, and it'll kind of build more relationship with Lost and Found. Here's the problem. So if you choose the wrong person to give the workshop, people don't like that, and they won't come back. So we had one presenter, also won't name them, great person, just bad fit for the session. We asked in survey feedback, what worked, what didn't, how can we improve? And the overwhelming feedback was, this is the worst experience I've ever had, and we don't want anything to do with your organization. Fortunately, we were able to talk through it with the students and say, hey, maybe we could do better. Let's not, throw the baby out with the bathwater, so to speak. But it made us so much more effective in choosing who are the right people, and also, most importantly, what topics should we discuss? Be careful how you approach the topic of mental health sometimes. It can be hard to deal with. So that's probably my favorite failure because it set the stage for everything else.
Please help me thank Erik for being with us today.